room, and also with some numbers we should all know. There are 20,000 abductions of children every year by strangers. 99% of them will be returned fairly soon. But of the 100 who are held long-term, only about a half return alive. And fewer still have the strength to bear witness to the reality of what predators do. Jaycee Dugard said she wanted to write it for all the victims and as a call to action for judges, psychiatrists, parole officers, and any of us who might be able to save a child's life.
Okay.
This is Philip Garrido. In a video obtained by ABC News from the prosecutors, he is singing one of the songs he wrote. He told everyone he was a musical genius on the verge of a big break. He also calls himself the Witness, rambling on about the Bible, saying he was chosen to hear the voices of demon angels in the walls, in the ground, and that he will save the world. And doctors in the parole system know about him. He's even given medication, and everything he does is supposed to be monitored. His first arrest was 1972 for raping a 14-year-old girl who was too afraid to testify, so the case collapsed. 5 years later, in a rented storage container, he raped a woman for 8 hours who managed to escape. Because of her, he was sentenced to 50 years in prison, but he was released after a quarter of that sentence was served. Later, he would even receive a letter of commendation from the parole board, heralding him for his personal accomplishments. And parole officers would visit him 60 times at his house, and though they knew his patterns, they never looked hard enough in the backyard to find a little girl. Jaycee Dugard, imprisoned 2 hours from her home. She didn't know it, but she was in Antioch on the outskirts of San Francisco. It is still that first week, in June 1991, the 11-year-old girl, handcuffed, arms behind her back, is aching, skin rubbed raw. Philip Garrido is her only human contact, and sometimes he'll just sit and tell her funny stories or bring her fast food. Classic approach, we are told, for a pedophile.
I depended on him for bathroom, food, company.
You had no water, toothbrush?
No.
Toilet?
No. No toilet.
What was the toilet?
Toilet was a bucket. Well, I had handcuffs on, so it was very difficult, so.
She writes in the book she has no idea what he's planning to do. She's never heard about sexual abuse. Had you ever heard the phrase?
Nope. Not into boys, other than, you know, maybe the New Kids on the Block or something like that.
Sex was Ken and Barbie.
Yeah, laying together. That's what it was.
That's what you thought it was?
That's what I thought it was, yeah.
In her book, what she has written is unflinching and detailed. I ask her why she decided to write it all. She said she wanted to do it for victims of sex abuse, who often keep secrets, along with fear and shame.
Why not look at it? You know, stare it down until it can't scare you anymore.
She worked on all this with her therapist, Rebecca Bailey, who specializes in family reunification after trauma.
It is not her shame. Those things happen to her. They're not who she is.
This is the studio. That's where it was first taken. I didn't want there to be any more secrets.
As we continue, we will not bring you all the details in the book. We said she should only say out loud what she wants to say. She tells us right after she's kidnapped, he forces her into a shower with him, and she's never seen an unclothed man. Again, she's just 11. It will be at the end of that first week that he brings her a milkshake.
Comes in with the milkshake, and I was getting used to him coming in. But he said things were going to be different.
This time?
This time.
She is still in handcuffs the first time he rapes her.
I remember crying, but they were silent. Just tears running down my face.
She tells us she remembers seeing a trail of ants make their way toward the untouched milkshake. It will continue day after day.
Before I ate meals. Felt like every day. I mean, I don't, like I said, time is hard to judge, but there's a switch that I had to shut off.
Just go someplace else.
Just went someplace else.
At one point, he brings in a TV, though she can't see the news. She doesn't know her mother is now asking neighbors to keep their porch lights on in case she comes home.
Lifts my spirit real high. I'm overwhelmed. This is more than I can ask for. This is going to bring her home. I know it.
In the beginning, you could only see QVC.
Yeah, I would fall asleep to the sound of jewelry being sold. But at least it was talking.
And she tells us she thinks it was almost a month and a half later when Garrido takes her out of that soundproof storage unit into a room next door.
Over here, the blue building.
He tells her the demon angels, those voices he hears, had let him take her because she will help him with his sexual problems. And again, this is a convicted sex offender still in the care of court-mandated doctors. He had one appointment 3 days before he kidnapped Jaycee, and another appointment 4 days after. But he tells her society has ignored him, and that's why she is there.
That's what I was here for. Yeah, that's why he got me.
And if you do it, you would keep other little girls safe?
Yeah, he was always, protect other people, so he didn't have to go out and do this to anybody else.
Did you believe that you were protecting other little girls?
I think I did. I think on some level I did, yeah.
He put that stun gun out on a table where she could see it. He got out equipment for drugs, and so began what he would call runs, drug-filled binges for days. In the book, she writes what he forced her to do. This is what she is comfortable telling us.
Well, they were very long. Usually started out with, he would dress me up for hours because he was taking methamphetamines and speed. He called it speed. He would get focused on one thing for long periods of time. And then it usually went to him with his little books of cutouts that he would cut out for hours and paste on little girls from magazines and porno magazines. I mean, it didn't make sense to me at all, but that's what he did.
And then sometimes he would make her listen for the voices, the ones he says he can hear in the walls. And when it's over, she says, he sobs. He would apologize and...
That's the confusing part.
Beg your forgiveness.
Tell me what an awful man he was, and here I am trying to, feeling, hurting, because it hurt, wanting it to stop, and I have to comfort him.
After the tears, to keep her compliant, more threats. Once he said he'd sell her to people who would lock her in a cage. She said she was shaking. He would come up with
the unknown that would always be more terrifying than what I knew. After, I got used to I don't know if you ever get used to that, but you can get used to things. Once I got used to that, it would be the unknown thing that was more terrifying than actually keeping with the runs and doing something that was, at least I knew what was going to happen. It's when he would invent new things and
all night long you would think that's what he was going to do to you.
I begged him, I'll do it better, I'll be good, because it was the unknown that was terrifying.
Did you think it was going to be the rest of your life?
It sounded like it.
And as the first month passes, remember, there's no way she can run. The handcuffs, the bolted doors, the dogs outside.
There was not a day that I didn't cry. I felt like there would never ever be a day that I wouldn't cry again. And then after a while, I told myself I can't cry anymore.
What's the most haunting memory?
That lock, hearing the lock. I know I said that earlier, but for some reason that. And the bed, it was a squeaky bed. Squeaky pull-out bed. I guess the noise, the sounds. It's weird what sticks in your head, but sounds.
How did you stay sane?
I don't know. I was still alive. Was still there was still hope. Still hope.
I'm trying to imagine how you are coping. I'm trying to imagine.
I don't know. I can't imagine being beaten to death, you know. And you can't imagine being kidnapped and raped, you know. So it's just, you just do what you have to do to survive.
And again, she says she is telling her story so that the thousands of other survivors of sexual abuse know that survival is your strength, not your shame. It's that T.S. Eliot quote you have in your book.
Yeah, I had
about hope.
Thinking I have to hope in something. Hope was in the wrong place. But sometimes you just have to hold on to any kind of hope to survive.
And there's one other measure of Jaycee Dugard's willingness to stare down the truth. It turns out Philip Garrido videotaped what he did to her, and the prosecutors asked her to look at them. She says she did, to make sure he had not kidnapped any other little girls. And every tape was of her. In her book, A Stolen Life, Jaycee Dugard has a quote from T.S. Eliot about people who carry the light of hope in the world, who hold it close and wait wherever the journey takes them. We want to thank all of you who've gathered to watch her story. Some of it is harrowing. Some of it will make you simply outraged, especially when you see the times law enforcement could have saved her and did not. And at the predators who defy understanding. But in the end, Jaycee Dugard would find a way to save herself with a light no one could extinguish, holding on to hope, a mother who would never let go, and some caring and observant strangers who would make it possible one day for her to call her mother and say, "I am alive. I'm coming home." She was a little girl with a name right out of a storybook, Jaycee Lee Dugard, age 11 years old.
Hello?
A girl who loved her mom, her little sister, a cat named Monkey, and school and books and stories, and by holding on to the memory of everything she loved, survived and would triumph after a battle in a monstrous backyard, where a convicted sex offender let out of prison, Philip Garrido, and his wife Nancy, kidnapped her, handcuffed her, imprisoned her, had her give birth outside. And over again, the justice system would fail her. For 18 years, she was forbidden to say her own name, so this is how her book, A Stolen Life, begins.
Let's get one thing straight. My name is Jaycee Lee Dugard. I was kidnapped by a stranger at age 11, and I want Philip Garrido to know that I no longer have to keep his secret. I was happy.
She is 31 years old. She looks impossibly young.
I know, I was worried about should I wear heels.
She is also someone who laughs a lot and has delight in ordinary things on ordinary days.
Oh
You
my
drive.
God, I do drive. I drive very safely.
You would never know what she survived,
Oh, my pine cone?
unless you notice how her face changes when she speaks of the past. And the charm around her neck. It's a pine cone.
Back then, it was the last thing I touched. You know, the last grip on me. Now it's a symbol of hope and new beginnings, and that there is life after something tragic.
And tonight, she says this is what she wants to do. She will not speak of every detail she has written in her book, but lessons of hope and survival, and what it meant to her to have a mother who would never let go. It is June 10th, 1991. Jaycee Dugard wakes up in this house in Lake Tahoe, California, where her family's moved because it's a safe place to live. She's in the 5th grade and remembers worrying about the field trip coming up because she's so shy. Remembers dressing in her favorite all-pink outfit. And she remembers the mom she absolutely adores had to leave early for her work as a typesetter at a print house and didn't keep a promise.
She said that she'd give me a kiss goodbye. She didn't. I wasn't mad. I just, thought I'd catch her when I got home, tell her, you got to give me a kiss next time,
She also remembers there was something she had wanted to ask her mom.
I wanted to ask my mom if I could shave for the field trip. You know.
Shave your legs?
Yeah.
Big question
Didn't want to be
for her.
embarrassed. Yeah. Didn't want to be embarrassed. So that was the big question on my mind.
She walks up the hill from the house to catch the school bus, the way her mother taught her, looking out for traffic.
Walked up the side of the hill. That was the safe way to go against traffic. And halfway up, my world changed in an instant. I thought, oh, somebody's looking for directions.
A gray car pulls up. A man rolls down the window.
Because what else would it be? And his hand shoots out, and I just feel numb. My whole body is tingly. I don't know what it's from. I fall back in the bushes.
She had been paralyzed by a stun gun.
I lost control of my bladder. I wasn't even embarrassed. No time to be embarrassed.
On the ground, the sharp edges of a pine cone are the last thing she touches before she comes to, face down, on the floor in the back seat of a car.
I remember my throat felt very dry and scratchy and like I had been screaming, but I don't remember screaming.
The man behind the wheel is Philip Garrido, a convicted sex offender, supposedly monitored by parole officers and doctors. Holding her down on the floor is his wife, Nancy. The district attorney believes Nancy scouted this little girl for her husband as a prize. Did they say anything? Did you hear anything?
No, not at first. After we were driving for a while, I heard the driver say, "I can't believe we got away with it." And he started laughing. I think I blacked out again or something. It was like the most horrible moment of your life times 10.
120 miles later, the car stops in front of this house on a neighborhood street. Garrido tells her to be quiet.
I said, I think it's probably one of the only things I said was, my family doesn't have a lot of money, they can't pay the ransom. That's what I kidnap as ransom, right? Yeah. No. Not always.
He is 40 years old, 6 feet 4 inches tall. She is 11, 4 feet 6, 80 pounds. He takes away the pink clothes she dressed in that morning. The only thing she has left is a little ring shaped like a butterfly. She will hide from him for 18 years. Blanket over her head, he walks her through a small area of grass toward a fence where an opening is concealed by a tarp. And hidden behind the fence, a deranged collection of sheds and storage units, which the people monitoring Garrido would not search. One of them, tiny, completely soundproof. He leads her inside and takes out handcuffs.
Said that they were the fuzzy kind, so they wouldn't hurt as bad. Whatever.
Behind your back?
Yeah. There was a pallet on the floor. And then he said he'd be back later. And he shut the studio or the soundproof door and then the other door with the lock.
You heard that
lock? Yeah. I can still hear it consciously or when I'm awake. Just some sounds and smells and just don't leave you.
He warns her there are dogs outside, Dobermans. They'll attack if she tries to escape. She notices there's one window covered with bars and a towel. He leaves. At one point, you write, you get up and you take your teeth and you pull a towel off.
I wanted to see where I was. Yeah. I couldn't use my hands. And there was just weeds and some kind of fence.
Naked, in handcuffs, she drifts in and out of sleep, crying.
I didn't really want to because then you can't wipe them away. Then you get all sticky and, that sounds awful, but, I tried not to cry because I couldn't wipe them away or, and then they get itchy and...
At one point, she made a note to remember the sound of the train so it would help her mom find her.
And then later it was just listening to lawnmowers and airplanes, anything for human contact, I guess. I was so lonely. I felt so alone.
Have you seen Jaycee Lee Dugard?
And 120 miles away, the mother who loves her and will never give up goes on television to make her first plea.
She's pretty, young, innocent child.
Friends have been searching all day and evening.
Police started searching the neighborhood.
Police set up a roadblock and go door to door. Her classmates are out in the streets holding up signs.
And it's time that she comes home.
And she has written that all alone that night, she decided to cling to something that would sustain her. There is moonlight streaming through the towel. It makes her think of her mother.
We would always sit on the porch and we would debate whether the full moon or the crescent moon was the better moon. I always liked the full moon and she liked the crescent. And just always made me think of her.
Do you remember the song you and your mom sang? Looking at the moon?
You are the moon. How does it go? I forget.
I love the moon and the moon
Sees me. I see the moon and the moon sees me. God bless the moon and God bless me.
As we resume, 7 months have now passed since Jaycee Dugard was taken from her mother, her sister, her life. That field trip she worried about, long over. Her 5th grade classmates have now graduated elementary school. Her mother is still pleading with everyone to keep on searching for her.
She is coming home. That gives me a lot of hope, a lot of optimism. Somebody's, feeding me dreams for a reason.
And by the way, her biological father had left the family, was never in Jaycee's life. There was a stepfather, but Jaycee was not close to him. 2 hours away, Jaycee is now being moved back and forth from the soundproof room to the larger room where she's handcuffed to the bed. Her only company, a spider, she names Bianca. Then one day, Garrido says there's someone he wants her to meet, and he wants them to be friends.
She enters the picture.
Yes.
Nancy.
Nancy Garrido is his wife. They had met in a visiting room at Leavenworth Prison. He, a prisoner there, she visiting her uncle. She, a Jehovah's Witness. He talked to her about the Bible. She was also in the car the day Jaycee Dugard was stun gunned and kidnapped. She was the one who pinned the little girl to the floor with her legs. Now she shows up bringing a purple bear and a Barbie doll and chocolate milk.
I was so lonely. I craved any kind of attention. I wanted her to like me.
Because
I felt like if she doesn't like me, then I'm going to get in trouble.
Jaycee remembers using the cartons from the chocolate milk to try to make furniture for her Barbie.
Nancy starts bringing me meals. There's a TV over there, so I could watch TV as long as it was low.
she told you she was sorry what they had done to you?
Mm-hmm. She told me that she cried too. In some ways she's just as manipulative because she would cry and say, I can't believe that he did this. I wish he would have got a headache that morning that he took you.
And she knew everything.
Yeah, she knew everything. Everything. What makes somebody do that in the first place? Take somebody else's child just to satisfy your husband. I don't know, she's just as evil as Philip. Very twisted minds.
Twisted.
Okay. Does it say record still?
Yes.
Good.
Remember the video obtained by the prosecutors of Philip Garrido playing his guitar? Again, he is a convicted sex offender supposed to be monitored, at times even wearing an ankle bracelet. But here, he is singing at a children's playground. And holding the camera, his wife Nancy, who will furtively move it off him away to gather secret pictures of little girls playing.
You got me real good?
Yes. I can see you really good.
As we've said, later tonight, we will go to law enforcement and seek answers. When they are arrested, Nancy Garrido will also be charged with kidnapping and rape by force. We remember a moment from the courtroom. Philip Garrido, Nancy Garrido, in a jury box separated by their lawyers. And suddenly he looks at her and mouths the words, I love you. Even as she kept scouting little girls for her pedophile husband, Nancy Garrido, like him, would alternate motherly concern with coldness and cruelty.
Jealous.
Very jealous of me for some reason. Like I wanted her husband to rape me. Very jealous and sick.
She worked by day as an aide in a nursing home, but when Philip Garrido vanished for a month, she replaced him as jailer.
A whole month. He's gone.
Yeah, she said that he was on an island with a friend, but he was actually sent back to prison.
For failing a drug test.
So it's the two of you.
Yeah. She would lock us in every night. She wanted to watch this scary movie called The Unborn. It was awful. It was very scary. And then she would leave in the morning and lock the door.
And the two of them also worked together to use Jaycee's love of animals to manipulate the little girl, giving her kittens that would then mysteriously vanish.
Well, it was Tigger, and then it was Snowy, who, I don't know what happened to her.
Another kitten was named Eclipse, a girl kitten. Jaycee loved so much she asked for paper and a pen to make a little diary. She writes how grateful she was for the little kitten and how much the Garridos told her they paid for her, adding, "Last night I started to cry and she heard me. She came to me and sat next to me, and after that I felt a little better. She means more to me than my own life. I see her love for me." And every entry is studied with a little heart on a string, like a balloon. The little kitten Eclipse would also disappear during one of Garrido's drug-filled runs. And when Garrido happened to notice that the little girl had signed her name, Jaycee, on that journal,
I actually wrote my name, and I tore it out when he saw it.
Because he said you had to.
Yes, and that was the last time.
the last time for 18 years she'd be allowed to write or speak her name. Losing her name and fighting to hold on to the memory of the face that is keeping her alive, her mom.
I wanted to see her more than anything.
And worried you'd forget.
Worried I'd forget what she looked like or what she sounded like. Would she forget me?
Would she want you after this?
Yep. Being a mom now, you know, I know that she never forgot about me because I can never forget about my kids. But, you know, when you're a kid and you think you're easily forgettable.
And her mother, Terry, is also fighting to hold on as 1 year passes, and then a second. She's alone except for a couple of her friends who will quit their jobs to help her. On TV, she shows Jaycee's room untouched since her disappearance. It's where Terry says she goes to pray every night.
Even though she's not here, she's still in my heart.
And when 34 months have passed, 1,029 days since Jaycee Dugard was kidnapped, the handcuffs occasionally come off, but she's still always locked in a bolted room. One night, the Garridos are with her. They are watching the 10 Commandments on TV. For the first time, they bring her cooked food, corned beef and cabbage. It's Easter, 1994.
And then they tell you they think you're pregnant.
Yeah.
4.5 months pregnant, 13 years old.